Most people encounter AI chatbots as finished products: customer support assistants, website help widgets, virtual study companions. They appear already built, already knowledgeable, already responsive. But behind every chatbot is a relatively simple structure: a set of instructions, a knowledge source, and a language model capable of interpreting questions. What's changed in recent years is not just the intelligence of these systems, it's the accessibility. Today, building a functional AI chatbot no longer requires deep programming knowledge. The tools have become simpler. The interfaces have become visual, and the underlying models have become capable of handling conversation with very little configuration. So in this tutorial, we'll walk through the basic structure of a modern AI chatbot, not as a coding exercise, but as a system, a series of components that work together to produce a conversational interface. Once you understand the structure, the process becomes surprisingly approachable. Let's start with a simple question. What is an AI chatbot structurally? At its core, a chatbot has three parts. First, a language model. This is the engine that interprets questions and generates responses. Second, a knowledge source. This could be documents, website content, FAQs, or product information. And third, an interface, something that allows users to type questions and receive answers. When these three components are connected, a chatbot emerges: language understanding, information retrieval, and conversational delivery. A few years ago, assembling these pieces required significant engineering. Developers needed to build KPIs, manage infrastructure, and fine-tune models. Today, many platforms provide visual tools that handle much of this complexity. Instead of writing code, you configure behavior. You define where the chatbot gets its information. You test its responses, and you refine the system gradually. This shift, from programming to configuration, is one of the quiet transformations in modern AI. So let's walk through a beginner-friendly example. Imagine you want to create a chatbot for a small website. The goal is simple. Visitors should be able to ask questions about your services and receive clear answers instantly. The first step is choosing the chatbot platform. Many modern tools provide similar capabilities. They connect to large language models, they allow document uploads, and they generate a conversational interface. Once you create an account, you'll typically see a dashboard where new chatbots can be created. This is where the system begins. Step 1 is defining the chatbot's role. Think of this as the system's orientation. You might write a short instruction such as, "This chatbot helps visitors understand our services and answers common questions about pricing, features, and support." This instruction acts as context for the language model. It shapes the tone and scope of responses. Even a few sentences can significantly influence behavior. Step 2 is adding knowledge sources. A chatbot becomes useful when it can reference real information. Most platforms allow you to upload content such as PDF documents, website pages, product manuals, knowledge base articles. Once uploaded, the system processes these documents. It breaks the text into smaller segments, indexes them, and stores them in a searchable format. This process is often called retrieval augmentation. When a user asks a question, the chatbot retrieves relevant information from the documents, then uses the language model to compose an answer. To illustrate this, imagine a visitor asks, "What payment methods do you accept?" The chatbot scans the knowledge base. It finds the section describing payment options. Then it generates a response summarizing that information in natural language. The model is not guessing. It is referencing the material you provided. This is why well-structured documents improve chatbot performance dramatically. Step 3 is testing the conversation. Most chatbot builders include a testing panel. You can type questions just like a user would. This stage is surprisingly important because it reveals how the system interprets real-world phrasing. For example, a user might ask, "How do I cancel my subscription?" Or they might phrase the same question differently. "Can I stop my plan anytime?" Testing helps identify gaps in the knowledge base. If the chatbot struggles with certain questions, the solution is often simple. Add more documentation, clarify instructions, or refine the system prompt. Another useful step is defining response boundaries. Chatbots sometimes attempt to answer questions beyond their intended scope. For instance, a customer service bot might receive unrelated questions about unrelated topics. To prevent this, developers often include instructions like, if the question is outside the provided knowledge base, politely explain that the chatbot can only answer questions about the company's services. This keeps the system focused, and it prevents misleading responses. Now let's consider the interface. Once the chatbot performs reliably in testing, the next step is deployment. Most platforms provide a small script that can be added to a website. After installation, a chat widget appears on the page. Visitors click the icon, a conversation window opens, and the AI assistant becomes available. In many cases, the entire setup, from knowledge upload to deployment, can be completed in less than an hour. But building a chatbot is not only about answering questions. The deeper value lies in interaction patterns. When users begin asking questions, they reveal something valuable: their curiosity, their confusion, their priorities. Chatbot dashboards often record these conversations, which means creators can analyze the questions people ask most frequently. Over time, this data becomes a powerful feedback loop. It shows which information is unclear, which features generate interest, and which topics deserve better documentation. Another subtle shift is happening as chatbots improve. They are gradually becoming interfaces to knowledge systems. Instead of navigating menus or search pages, users simply ask questions. The chatbot retrieves and interprets the relevant information instantly. In other words, the interface becomes conversational. This may seem like a small change, but it transforms how people interact with digital systems. Navigation becomes dialogue. For creators, this shift opens new possibilities. An educator might build a chatbot that answers questions about a course. A small business might create a product assistant. A research group might build a conversational interface for complex documents. In each case, the chatbot functions as a guide. It helps people explore information without friction. Of course, no system is perfect. Chatbots occasionally misunderstand questions or produce responses that require correction. This is why iterative improvement matters. Developers often review conversation logs, identify unclear answers, and update the knowledge base accordingly. Over time, the system becomes more reliable, not because the model changed, but because the information environment improved. It's also important to understand the limits of these systems. Language models generate responses based on patterns. They do not possess independent verification mechanisms, which means accuracy depends heavily on the quality of the documents provided. If the knowledge base is incomplete, the chatbot's answers will reflect that limitation. In this sense, chatbot design is partly an exercise in information architecture. The clearer the source material, the clearer the responses. Another emerging practice involves combining chatbots with workflow automation. Instead of simply answering questions, the chatbot can trigger actions. For example, scheduling a meeting, generating a support ticket, collecting contact information. These integrations transform the chatbot from a passive assistant into an active interface, a bridge between conversation and action. Stepping back, it's worth noting how recently this became possible. A decade ago, building conversational systems required extensive training data and specialized engineering. Today, the underlying language model most of the complexity. What remains is system design, defining knowledge, defining boundaries, and shaping the user experience. So if you're interested in experimenting with AI, building a chatbot is one of the most practical entry points. It teaches several useful principles at once: how language models interpret context, how knowledge retrieval works, how conversational interfaces shape user behavior, and perhaps most importantly, how information becomes accessible when the interface disappears. Because the real shift here is not just automation, it's accessibility. Systems that once required technical expertise can now be assembled through simple configuration, which means more people can participate in designing intelligent tools. Not just engineers, but educators, entrepreneurs, researchers, creators. And that may be the most interesting pattern to watch. As AI tools become easier to build, the boundary between user and developer begins to blur. People who once consumed software are now quietly constructing it, often in small, practical ways. A chatbot, an automated workflow, a personalized knowledge assistant. None of these are dramatic inventions, but together they represent a gradual change in how digital systems are created. So the next time you open a website chat window and ask a question, remember that behind the conversation is a structure, a language model interpreting your request, a knowledge base providing context, and a simple interface connecting the two. Understanding that structure is the first step toward building your own. This is Neural Pulse Lab, exploring the systems behind modern artificial intelligence and the subtle shifts that make powerful technology accessible to everyone.